push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you got to keep you and your get intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Vadadi.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
You're 6 minutes away from a live episode of Free Talk Live, brought to you by freekeen.com. Listen live at freetalklive.com.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Thursday, July 13th, 2017. Silver is trading at $15.88 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,220 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at 5 cents, and the average price of Bitcoin is $2,396. Antiwar.com reports, adding to evidence of the humanitarian nightmare the Afghan war has become, Australia is now investigating soldiers for their special forces related to evidence that at least twice in raids in Kandahar province, troops killed children in rural areas, then tried to cover up their deaths. Cover it up might be overstating it, really. Indeed, the evidence suggests that the Australian forces who were present at the killing just plain never reported them up the chain of command, and it was only because local villagers found the bodies that those deaths became public knowledge. This comes as Australia's Inspector General is already investigating the special forces over other unlawful killings, and those special forces were killing so many children they routinely carried spare drop weapons with them just to plant on the corpses to make it look like they were combatants. The investigations serve as just another embarrassment from the perspective of Australia's military, but also appears to be the result of broad changes in the priorities and tactics of the U.S. and its coalition allies in fighting in Afghanistan as they move away from the clear and hold tactics of the war's first decade. Those familiar with the situation say that once clear and hold was abandoned, the collateral damage of raids stopped being of major concern for the troops since they weren't going to be there after the operation anyhow, and often helicopter-based raids became land, kill, and leave. This attitude was plainly an evidence of the Australian forces engaged in the raids in question, heading into rural Kandahar in the middle of the night and shooting anything that moved, even if they weren't in the combat situation yet. If the slain turned out to be children, the expectation was that this could simply be swept under the rug. It's the same attitude that has some other nations involved in the operation facing similar questions, from New Zealand's probes into revenge raids to U.S. Special Forces desecrating the bodies of slain enemies. It's also the latest in a long list of reasons why they aren't welcomed as liberators and aren't anywhere near winning the war. In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, "Sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic." Ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com. UPI reports personal information of an estimated 14 million Verizon customers was left unsecured on the internet, according to a tech company that investigates possible data breaches. The vulnerability was the result of a Verizon subcontractor's error. The contractor, Israeli-based Nice Systems, hosted the data in an unsecured cloud-based server that was accessible to anyone who knew where to look for it. The potential breach was found on the website UpGuard, which seeks out potential data vulnerabilities where they exist and works to correct them. UpGuard notified Verizon of its findings on June 6th, and the vulnerability was finally corrected on June 22nd. UpGuard did not publicize the oversight until Wednesday, weeks after the threat of a data breach had passed. In a statement, Verizon said the only individual to access the information other than Verizon or Nice Systems employees were the researchers from UpGuard. The company said, "We have been able to confirm that the only access to the cloud storage area by a person other than Verizon or its vendor was a researcher who brought the issue to our attention. In other words, there was no loss or theft of Verizon or Verizon customer information." The data included customers' names, addresses, account details, and their Verizon personal identification number. For nearly 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. Reuters reports outgoing Amtrak co-chief executive Wick Moorman said on Wednesday the money-losing U.S. passenger rail system is considering a less comfortable economy class of seats that could allow it to pack in more passengers. He said that the distance between the seat back and the seat in front would be tighter like in an airline. Amtrak fares can be higher than airline fares, but its trains currently offer much more legroom than an economy class airplane seat. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
From the admission of Ant Colony 000082567 KLN 00067X into the Union in 1897, to the day in 1817 when embarrassed construction workers realized they put the Erie Canal in the wrong place, The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On August 5, 1962, Nelson Mandela was jailed until 1990, becoming fully rehabilitated through the South African penal system, and thanks to the services provided to him while imprisoned, emerged from jail a successful politician and internationally revered symbol of peace. Mandela's record of overcoming hardships and moving South Africa beyond its formidable racial struggles is a lasting testament to South Africa's correctional facilities, and prove that the penal system's small cells, demeaning work duties, and minimal rations are exactly the tools needed for a prisoner to truly become a reformed citizen.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. We'll give you the toll-free call-in lines here momentarily where you can join us and bring up whatever is on your mind. The us in studio tonight is Darryl.
And Heather.
And Chris.
And Chris, you've brought several good things to the table tonight. You've got one about one of your favorite people in the world. My tongue is firmly planted in my cheek when I say that. Mr. Elon Musk. You've also got something about the Senate GOP's new healthcare bill, and I'm using air quotes there. And as you often point out, when people talk about health...
No, I know. How come you're so ready to go?
It's Superberry's Aronia berries.
Aronia what?
Aronia berries from superberries.com. They're known for having one of the highest levels of antioxidants that helps with overall wellness.
Where'd you get them?
I ordered them from superberries.com/radio, and right now we can get a free smoothie recipe book with our order. Plus, we can save $4 at checkout.
I can't wait to try them. I'll get the dog.
I'll get the kids.
Choose health. Eat purple. Superberries.com.
If there's a toxic chemical, biological, gas, smoke emergency while traveling, at home, or on your job, are you protected? Are you prepared? There are over 400,000 fires in the USA every year. Up to 85% of all deaths in a fire are due to smoke inhalation. 3 minutes without air, and we as humans will die. Be prepared and escape safely with our Safe Escape smoke hoods, giving you up to 60 minutes of breathable air protection. Order yours online at ase-safety.com. That's ase-safety.com. And get up to 40% off, plus free shipping.
My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain, I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
I love My Magic Mud. I drink a lot of coffee. I had stains on my teeth. Then I found My Magic Mud, and I was told it would remove stains. So I paid attention when I...
2026, meaning that over the next 9 years, there's going to be a total of $772 billion less on Medicaid, what is currently projected to be spent. So
Right.
they're cutting some proposed increases. They are cutting proposed increases. It doesn't say getting the same amount of money in an HSA of what I paid for a premium.
Sure.
And I was able to use the health savings account to pay my chiropractor.
Yeah, or Band-Aids or aspirin or all kinds of things like that. You know, they're a pretty useful idea. My issue with them is they're just overregulated.
Right.
This is one of those areas that we absolutely never needed federal government involvement in. Let us have savings account. We'll put money in them, and then we'll use it when we need it.
Right. But again, it's baffling to me that apparently there was some federal prohibition on using a health savings account to pay a premium to a doctor. So go to the doctor and your visit is $47. Nope, sorry, you can't use your health savings account because reasons.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Also Thursday, GOP Senators Cassidy and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina proposed an alternative approach to replacing Obamacare that would keep much of the federal taxes in place and sending that money to the states to control.
So basically what Senators Lindsey Graham and Cassidy are wanting to do here is wind up having the federal government be the middleman in essentially money laundering.
That's a really accurate way of putting it, Darryl.
So instead of you sending the money to your local state government, no, you've got to send it to the federal government, and then they send it to your local government.
Yeah, they're going to take a piece of the pie.
Exactly. They got to get their skin.
And then add strings to the money.
Absolutely.
There's always strings to the money.
Sure. And if we're gonna give you all this money back that your citizens paid to us, but you have to spend it in these ways. And that's,
it just means that whoever, like whatever states and stuff, rub the backs of the politicians when they're campaigning is the one that's going to reap the most reward.
True.
And my guess is a lot of this is going to wind up being opt-in programs to where, if you increase the police in, fighting the drug war, we'll give you extra money to where you can give it to old grannies that need Medicare.
Right. And it's again, I'm not even going to say I expected something. I didn't anything better out of the Republicans. I expected them to put forward Obamacare Light, and that's basically what we have here. A bad nightmare version of Obamacare Light.
Right, but, again, considering that what was passed as the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, commonly called Obamacare, was basically a bastardized version of Gingrich Care that was a response to Hillary Care back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I can't say that I really expect the Republicans to do anything major because it was their idea in the first place.
And it puts a glaring light on this whole thing, and this is the takeaway for everyone. This is not about health care.
Right.
This is about cronyism. This is about moving money around. This is about keeping in place huge federal bureaucracies while throwing out some buzzwords that they feel are going to attract Republicans to support it.
It's about one word. It's about one word, and it was the final word of that last sentence that you just read. Control.
Sure.
It's all about control. We need the federal government to take the money and then distribute it to the state governments.
Because we don't know what to do with it on our
control.
Own. Right.
It's all your calls and thoughts. Welcome. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live.
Do you want to help build a better financial system for everyone? Join DASH. Take control over their financial future today. Find out more at dash.org.
You've said it yourself. We need a healthcare system that focuses on health, not sickness. Health insurance pays for treating sickness but gives you nothing for being healthy. There's a free market care company that gives you freedom from health insurance.
He'd make like something like $48 for shingle and $54 an hour for rubber roof. I'm not even joking.
No,
like,
no,
it was
I don't doubt it at all.
And I'm like, I don't get, you're doing the exact same work, but because it's paid for by government, you're getting paid 3 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like,
because when you do a job for a government agency, they don't really have a bargaining chip to use.
No.
And then sometimes, though, he'd get put into a higher tax bracket by the end of the week if he worked any overtime or whatever, and it ended up like offsetting it. But it was weird how the whole thing worked.
Well, then we have laws requiring government transparency in a lot of things that say, you know what, we have to put, what our budget is out there. Financial woes at several top solar panel makers. But the decline has also coincided with a concerted and well-funded lobbying campaign by traditional utilities, which have been working in states' capitals across the country to reverse incentives for homeowners to install solar panels.
So one thing that I remember hearing probably 20 plus years ago when solar first kind of started being a thing, it was
outside the realm of science fiction. It was things that people were actually doing.
You can buy a solar panel and then you will never have a utility bill again.
Right.
But what wound up happening is very few people actually buy the solar panels. Most of the companies will say, we will give you the solar panels, and then you wind up buying the electricity from us, and then we do something and you get an incentive of something going back into the grid and something.
Yeah, it's gotten more complex because of more cronyism. But way back in the day, before all this regulation was involved and all this cronyism, if you bought solar panels, you could do one of two things with them. You could charge up batteries and you could save that energy for when you needed it. That was one thing you could do. Or you could do a grid tie system where basically what happened was you would be powering your own home, but any excess would flow into the power grid. And they were required by law to buy. Not everywhere, but in most places required to purchase your excess. And that's why it was really attractive.
Right, because I know several years ago, probably about a decade or so ago, my dad suggests that the Australian forces who were present at the killing just plain never reported them up the chain of command, and it was only because local villagers found the bodies that those deaths became public knowledge. This comes as Australia's Inspector General is already investigating the special forces over other unlawful killings, and those special forces were killing so many children, they routinely carried spare drop weapons with them just to plant on the corpses to make it look like they were combatants. The investigation serve as just another embarrassment from the perspective of Australia's military, but also appears to be the result of broad changes in the priorities and tactics of the U.S. and its coalition allies in fighting in Afghanistan as they move away from the clear and hold tactics of the war's first decade. Those familiar with the situation say that once clear and hold was abandoned, the collateral damage of raids stopped being of major concern for the troops since they weren't going to be there after the operation anyhow, and often helicopter-based raids became land, kill, and leave. This attitude was plainly an evidence of the Australian forces engaged in the raids in question, heading into rural Kandahar in the middle of the night and shooting anything that moved, even if they weren't in the combat situation yet. If the slain turned out to be children, the expectation was that this could simply be swept under the rug. It's the same attitude that has some other nations involved in the operation facing similar questions, from New Zealand's probes into revenge raids to U.S. Special Forces desecrating the bodies of slain enemies. It's also the latest in a long list of reasons why they aren't welcomed as liberators and aren't anywhere near winning the war. In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com. UPI reports personal information of an estimated 14 million Verizon customers was left unsecured on the internet, according to a tech company that investigates possible data breaches. The vulnerability was the result of a Verizon subcontractor's error. The contractor, Israeli-based Nice Systems, hosted the data in an unsecured cloud-based server that was accessible to anyone who knew where to look for it. The potential breach was found on the website UpGuard, which seeks out potential data vulnerabilities where they exist and works to correct them. UpGuard notified Verizon of its findings on June 6th, and people wound up installing rooftop solar panels. And again, the article from the New York Times says that there were a number of factors driving the installation, but also driving the reversal, including saturation in markets like California, as well as financial woes of top solar panel makers. And why would they be having financial woes? Maybe the fact that they've oversaturated certain markets where people are getting tax credits and being incentivized to do something that they wouldn't otherwise do.
Right. That's the whole scheme in all this. But let's go back to that last confusing sentence that we hit just before the news.
Yes.
Utilities argue that rules allowing private customers to sell excess power back to the grid price, known as net metering, can be unfair to homeowners who do not want or cannot afford their own installation.
Let's sort of, instead of just translating this sentence, let's explain this a little bit more.
Sure.
So, Chris, you winding up.
States, spotted in part by the utilities campaign, nearly every state in the country is engaged in a review of its solar energy policies. Since 2013, Hawaii, Nevada, Arizona, Maine, and Indiana have decided to phase out net metering, crippling programs that's explosive growth in the rooftop solar market. Nevada recently reversed its decision. Many more states are considering new or higher fees on solar customers. Quote, "We believe it's important to balance the needs of all our customers," unquote. Jeffrey Ostermeyer of Edison Electric Institute, the most
product. Right, I did. We get 30 days free.
And membership is only $9.95.
Yep. And buysellmakeoffer.com will never charge item fees, ever. Never. And this is cool. Listen to this. You can even use Skype or video to show your items.
That's cool.
Yes. All we have to do is go to the website, sign up, and then load our stuff.
We'll take your understanding of liberty to
into action. Well, you're in luck because HostGator, one of the top hosting companies out there, that change direction. The article says that there's been a drastic decline in the rate of installation, and we're going over some of the reasons of that. Let's go to Skype, where we've got Bad Slave. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
One of the problems with solar energy, and actually any kind of more distributed energy systems, is that it's really regulated against the people with smaller installations.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizon. The highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market.
And thank you for your
say that, we've got the grid, and I want to say that the grid as it sits is a good. He had this wonderfully operating old diesel engine making his electricity, and by the fuel that he was feeding it, it was way cheaper than grid power.
Right.
And he didn't even have enough of a feed because he was using so much power. And for some stupid reason, they shut him down and made him buy some other lesser and just it caused all kinds of problems.
Right.
And it was just an intervention, by government, as we're so all of us against, that was just interfering with people's, ability to, go forward and produce.
I think the analogy I like to use, and this is where I would like to see the quote grid go. It's more like the internet. The internet started because a bunch of companies agreed on some standards, and they voluntarily agreed to use TCP/IP as a transmission protocol and an internet protocol, and it works More or less. But right now, the way the grid exists today is it's haphazard. It's sort of a...
Free it up and put it out. I'm tired of hearing about it. They're planning to do it. Let's put it on. You know what I'm talking about? I know that, I'm so happy that the Toyota is going to step it up by end of this year. 6 more months. All the new cars are going to have it. That's what I want to hear. I'm talking about they're planning, they're thinking about putting all the cars, the computers talk to each other where they could
just don't mandate it.
Sarah, thank you for the call. Your calls and thoughts welcome here in the closing moments of Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733.
Dash is DigiCash, a digital currency designed to replace cash people manage. It's fast and easy, fees are low, and transactions are confirmed instantly. Pay anyone, anywhere in the world, anytime, for just pennies on the dollar.
Be confirmed instantly. Anyone, anywhere in the world, anytime, for just... Dash is decentralized, run by users who earn rewards for helping run the network and make governance decisions. It
began as net metering system by reducing the rate utilities paid to solar consumers for their excess electricity.
And let's look at this a slightly different way. And I'm surprised that it's not mentioned here that, also if you're creating your own electricity, then that's less money that the power company is winding up getting. And if they want to keep their profit margins at the same rates,
sometimes they have to pay more than they wanted to for a product.
Having a free market does not guarantee everybody's going to be a winner. It just guarantees that everybody has an equal opportunity worth of home.
Right. And that's what's so insane is that to participate in a free market, you have to follow regulation.
Right.
That's where we're at. And New Hampshire, I think, has a lot of laws that do sort of protect. There's a lot of laws that are written like if your dollar volume is less than X